Warning: the following content may be disturbing and even traumatic for some viewers. We understand post-traumatic stress disorder and emotional triggers, so I must warn you, this material cannot be unseen. Definitely do not allow young children to watch or listen to this video. In my prior video, IGP-042, and in numerous others I've done over the years, I've told you that these wars create the chaos that, among other things, enables human trafficking and rampant sexual abuse of children. It also creates the lawlessness that keeps the dangerous criminals in such places from being prosecuted. War takes priority, and it consumes scarce resources. The following story appeared in my newsfeed as a post from Serene Christine YouTube channel. She provided a link to the original article, which I also provide in the description section. Her post was not narrated, limiting those who get this news to those that read it, as opposed to watching a video as they're driving or otherwise visually occupied. I have narrated this piece because this shit needs to be exposed and stopped. Never mind that it didn't happen in our country, but these kids need a voice. Massive pedophile ring busted in Afghanistan. Over 500 boys were abused. A massive pedophile ring involved in the abuse of at least 546 boys from 6 schools has been discovered in Afghanistan. According to investigators, some of the victims have since been murdered after videos of the child sex ring were posted to a Facebook page. 5 families murdered their sons after their faces were seen on videos posted to the social media network. 2 other boys, aged 13 and 15, were killed last week. TheGuardian.com reports civil society organization, the Logar Youth Social and Civil Institution, which has been working in the region for 16 years, revealed the extent of the abuse after discovering more than 100 videos on the social media site. The institution is investigating other high schools in the region, believing thousands more children may have been abused. Mohammed Musa, a lead social worker at the institution, alleges that teachers, head teachers, and local authority officials are implicated in the abuse ring. The boys we have spoken to are between the ages of 14 to 20, and the cases were reported in relatively secure areas. That's one of the reasons why we think that the numbers could peak significantly, he said. Perpetrators might coordinate because they all understand that if legal action is taken against them, they work as a group rather than an isolated incident. One schoolboy, Tamim, 17, from Logar province, said that he recorded his head teacher's demands on his phone last year. He told me that he loved me and wanted to have sex with me, Tamim said. His parents hadn't believed him until they heard the recording. Students said that the head teacher had built a private room in the school's library where he molested male students after school and on weekends. Tamim said the head teacher has been fired from his post, but is understood to now hold a position in the Ministry of Education. A Ministry of Education spokesman, Nuria Lasat, said, "If there is a complaint about our staff, the judicial authorities are responsible to investigate it. If a teacher behaves inappropriately, the teacher is punished according to the law. Detecting crime and investigating it is not the task of the Ministry of Education. We have 220,000 teachers. We can't check on all of their lives." Another student, Daoud, 18, who used to attend a different high school, said that one of his teachers would fail him in class and then demand sexual services in return for a passing grade. So far, 66 cases of abuse have been identified at his school. My teacher said, "You don't need to study. I will pass you anyway," Daoud told The Guardian. Often, students from poor families were singled out because they were vulnerable, he said. According to Musa, some of the teachers were reported to the police but were released shortly after and have not been charged. The rapists are teachers, older students, authority figures, and even extended family members, he said. He and his team have received death threats since exposing the abuse. He added that many of the abused boys have also been threatened. Many of the victims are blackmailed. They are forced to sell drugs or engage in illegal activities in exchange for their rape videos to not be released, Musa said. Impunity, toxic gender norms, and poverty of victims play a big role in the silencing of these crimes. These boys come from the most marginalized sections of society. They don't have a voice, and very few speak up on their behalf, said Charu Hogg, executive director of the All Survivors Project, an organization working with male victims of sexual violence in Afghanistan where, she said, sexual abuse was massively underreported. Patricia Gossman, Associate Asia Director at Human Rights Watch, added, there is impunity for child rape because very often the perpetrators are powerful men in the military, police, or other official institutions. Even though the practice has been criminalized, the law too often goes unenforced. Male sexual abuse is widespread in Afghanistan. Psychologist Lila Schwartz, who runs mental health initiative Peace of Mind Afghanistan, said victims rarely report what happens as any attention or subsequent trial can ruin the family's honor. Oftentimes, families blame the receivers of sexual violence instead of the perpetrators, not believing that respected authority figures would engage in such behavior. That's part of the reason there has been not a single prosecution for male rape this year, and few, if any even, in previous ones. Schwartz has now started counseling several of the boys. If the children aren't being helped to deal with the traumatic experience, it can exasperate into violence, mental health disorders, PTSD, or even perpetration of sexual abuse. The students are so vulnerable and they will put the blame on themselves and feel shame even though they did nothing wrong, she explained, admitting that since the cases were so rampant and on such high levels, there isn't capacity to help everyone. Afghanistan's 37 million strong population continues to lack a widespread psychological support, and more than 18 years of war have left much of the country devastated, with both the Taliban and Islamic State continuing to gain territory. Much of Logar, home to less than 500,000 people, is controlled by the Taliban, who have killed several of these sex abusers, according to the Logar Youth, a social and civil institution. A further 25 families of raped boys have relocated to different provinces. Hundreds of others don't have the means to do that, explained Musa, who has since asked the U.S. Embassy in Kabul to help to support the boys. Sexual violence causes deep and long-lasting psychological harm to victims, said Hogg, warning of limited numbers of staff to respond to the needs of sexual violence survivors of all genders in Afghanistan. Stigma causes a significant barrier to seeking support, she added. It's hard to say just how many boys have been abused in Afghanistan. The practice is frowned upon, but is still practiced widespread, said Schwartz. Every class we talked to had students report forceful sexual abuse, explained Musa. It happens in every province. Children's rights are completely neglected. The names in this article have been changed. The viewer-listener here may wonder, why the concern for abused children in Afghanistan of all places? Don't we have enough of these issues in our own homeland to worry about? This article sends a message that there's a sickness, and it is an affliction that has plagued the planet since biblical times. Man-on-boy paraphilias are most famous in ancient Greek culture, where some may tell you it was a routine part of their society that had no stigma attached to it at all. We have seen the researchers and investigators in this article assert that the shame and stigma of an innocent victim is enough to cause the parents of an abused child to kill him, to kill the child instead of cutting the balls off the one who raped him. The mentality behind such a thing is beyond me, and I'm sure baffles the shit out of the hick farmer Sigmund Freud wannabe shrinks who, in my opinion, are crazier than the loonies they're trying to make better. There was some allegations by a pediatrician many years before the internet became available that alleged that if a child is anally raped before puberty, the DNA from the semen of the rapist entering the victim's bloodstream could cross the blood-brain barrier and cause the child to inherit some of the perpetrator's essence, is what I recall him alleging. I could not find it to quote it here. I have an eidetic memory, but you'll excuse me, this was almost 30 years ago, before the internet. Some who believe in Darwinian-style evolution may, I imagine, venture to propose that attraction to youth goes back to the caveman days, where younger mates were preferable to those that are approaching menopause, because it was in the interest of survival of the species to choose the most fit and suitable mate. Pray tell, what quirk of survival instinct causes some to choose mates that are young but can bear no offspring to pass genes on to the next impossible generation? Whatever the etiology of this seeming epidemic is, I don't believe is knowable. There are those in this government, most notably the deceased Ruth Bader Ginsburg Supreme Court Justice, that thinks such sexual abuse is healthy for children. She's right up there with NAMBLA, which is openly advocating for the decriminalization of child rape. RBG croaked last February. What you see now is clearly a doppelganger. Please subscribe to our backup channels, Net4Truth USA 2 Patriot channel, BitChute.com/net4Truth USA, and drop.space/ Net4Truth USA. We fly so close to the target, we are on our 5th fighter jet. We will be relentless and persistent until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears. Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/Net4Truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.